Good to have you with us on this Thursday edition at Schultz News and Commentary from the nation's capital. RT America News tonight at 8 o'clock, and of course, a big focus on terrorism. You know, I am just, over the years, I've changed my opinion or say I've adjusted to society. I think social mores change. People's thoughts, their processes, the way they process information, the way they come to conclusion on things, I think is different today because we have so much more information accessible to us. And so many people, I think, today make such a quick decision on where they stand on something, lacking the research and the full utilization of the resources that they have at their fingertips to make a decision. I think that these terrorist attacks that we're seeing and the prediction that there's going to be a lot more and that there's a strategy that may or may not be failing, look, this is going to be a way of life. That's how I view it. And so my attitude on privacy, I have to say I'm kind of like a windsock at the airport. Which way's the wind blowing? And I don't like feeling that way. I don't know what the right thing to do is. I mean, I know I want my family protected. I want your family protected. I want the country protected. And one side of me says, do whatever you have to do to stop it. I don't care if you're, looking in my shorts or whatever. And another side of me, because I know how politically dirty this country can get. And look at our campaigns, and that we are witnessing people will say anything and do anything to win. And I think that if we're going to have privacy, or if we're going to have more openness to law enforcement to allow them to do unconstitutional stuff that we're going to put up with, we're going to have to clean up our election cycle. Because all of this surveillance is going to go right into people's lives and going to destroy people who want to be public servants. And I mean, I may be taking it a step too far. I don't think I am, but if we had true campaign finance reform in this country where we knew our elections weren't going to get rigged and that the man wasn't going to be busting our balls every 30 seconds, we might feel a little bit different and feel a little bit more secure about how we run the country. Now, maybe that's a stone's throw from where you feel, or maybe it's way over in the next county or something, but I'm wrestling with this. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know where this is going, and I don't like feeling that way. Mike Papantonio, Ring of Fire radio host, America's Lawyer, with us. Mike, good to have you with us.
Ed, how are you? A lot of people taking the same attitude. Interesting. This is an interesting discussion to hear you say that, because so many of my friends that are constitutional lawyers are reminding me that liberals are always arguing that the Constitution is a living, breathing document and that we have to adjust to the times. And so I'm right there with you. I got so much criticism. I don't know if you recall the show we did about a month ago, where the issue was the discussion about Apple versus the people that were who lost loved ones in California about this. And I said, well, you've got to use a little bit of practical empathy and put yourself in the place of that family. They have the right to know everything.
Yeah.
And so that is such an interesting position that you just opened up with, because a lot of people, including myself, are feeling the same way. I know that the Constitution is made to react to the nature of times and, for example, exigent circumstances. I mean, if you take that issue alone, why is it the police power gives us a special right for what we call exigent circumstances when a felony is being committed, that a police officer can do extraordinary things? Because we value safety. And so you begin there and you start saying, well, gee whiz, there's this balancing effect that we have to put in place is going to be an evolution, Ed. It's not there's no right or wrong right now. There's just that gut feeling that you just expressed, and the same gut feeling I have that times are changing, and when we have family that we want to protect, we have to say, okay, First Amendment is extremely important, but we have to be realistic about how we the right to privacy and those types of issues are
I had an interesting conversation yesterday with Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, who was the director of Defense Intelligence under President Obama, and he's a man who is known for some serious canter and straight talk, okay? Well, he and Obama didn't see eye to eye, and he's not there anymore. He's retired. But he is on a roll talking to people about how we're not doing enough with ISIS. There's so much more we could be doing in the surveillance end of things and sharing information and protecting ourselves as a country. And then he goes on to say that he thought that, and I asked him about Apple, and he thought that Apple has a moral obligation to the country. Now, when you start going down to what is the moral obligation?
I heard your interview. I said First Amendment. I meant 14th Amendment when I was talking about. But the point I was trying to make is we value certain parts of the Constitution. For example, if we look at the First Amendment, well, we all know huge value of the First Amendment. 14th is the same way, but we have to look at the 14th and we have to say, okay, times are changing. And when I listened to that interview that you just described, I listened to that interview. And this was a man with a huge amount of experience, and he's simply saying, what I heard was, when he was talking about the moral value of what Apple has to say, is that, the moral value is that families lost fathers and sons and daughters and brothers, and the thought is we don't want that to needlessly happen again.
Yeah.
Now, is it needless? Is it needless intrusion to take a look at who else these characters may have been talking to? That is evolved. That question is evolving. If you ask most Americans, do you want to be safe? Or do you want to worry about people listening to you on the phone? They want to say, I want to be safe. So I'm in that same place that you are right now, and I think it's an interesting, because you and I have not talked about this. You've not had any conversations about this, and what you described is exactly what I'm feeling about this very issue.
Well, what brings me to the conversation is that there is clearly not finger-pointing, but a clear distinction between what we're doing in the United States to protect the country. Maybe it's because we got hit on 9/11, and what Brussels and France and how they have not evolved to the position that we're at right now. Mm-hmm. I mean, their borders are like a line drawn on a map.
Yeah.
And it just can't be that way.
Well, the point is this. Right now, a new generation of millennials, for example, is coming up. We were steeped in right to privacy for a lot of reasons. We're children of the George Orwell kind of thinking, and that was obviously he got it right. He got it right. If you let government go too far, they will own every part of you. Do not trust government. Yeah. I'm a true believer in that. But what's evolving now is a new generation who's come up with the threat of terrorism. Yeah. To them, it's very tangible. It's real. They saw the towers go down when they were children. Okay? Yeah. And then, so this notion of terrorism is in their lives. When they analyze this, chances are, I think what the numbers are going to start showing is we want to be safe. Terrorism is a new norm. It's not aberrational anymore. It's not transient. It is the new norm. So here's the point. The Constitution has to change according to those new norms. Yeah. Now, do we take away people's right to privacy? Of course not. But do we balance that intrusion question? That has always been on the table. And I personally thought that the Apple case was not necessarily the perfect case for that balancing equation. It was not the place to say, okay, here's the lines drawn here between privacy and the right to execute police powers. I didn't think that was the perfect case. But from a moral standpoint, when we look at those families that lost loved ones, you got to say, well, golly, they got some rights.
Here's what made me think about this story even more. Not only the attack. And the reason why I connected it to politics is because this most recent dust-up on the Republican side, this back and forth between Cruz and Trump. Trump saying that he's going to spill the beans on Cruz's wife. Mm-hmm. And I thought to myself, he might know something. And he's dirty enough to throw it out there. Yeah. And so Who knows what people know about you? And half of it isn't right anyway, most of the time. But I just think that when it creeps into politics like that,
you think of Richard Nixon and you think of the church hearings, don't you? You think of Richard Nixon. I'm going to go after my enemies. I'm going to go after their phone tap. I'm going to go after their IRS issues. I'm going to spy on them. You think of Richard Nixon, especially in light of the new Nixon tapes that have been emerging, and you know that the church hearings were critical at that time because the power was so abused. And I think that's where you're coming from, if I'm hearing you right.
Yeah. It is abuse of power.
Yeah.
You got information is power.
Yeah.
And you can swing people's opinions. You can destroy people and it certainly make it so they're not going to get in an elected position.
Of course.
And so that's the scary thing about the privacy thing. But you know what? I want to be safe, and you know I think most of Americans are there, but it's taken us a while to evolve to that. You're going to have oversight galore to get this thing through, and you're going to have an element of secrecy that is. You know, like I would have to say the FISA court, and I'm winging it here, Pap, is that the FISA court must be working. I mean, because the FISA court, the Justice Department has a 24/7 judge in the building.
Right.
And a clandestine agent can go out and do surveillance on someone that they're concerned about who's on American soil, but within 24 hours, he's got to come back and report it to the Justice Department. So it does the immediacy, and it provides the oversight. Now, this is a big revision that I think was made in 2002 or 2003.
Right around there. Well, you know, here's the point. The interview that you were talking about, and again, it was a great interview. I don't know the gentleman's name, but I listened to it, and you know what he said was the scary thing is if Americans knew how restricted the system is for people who are trying to stop bad things from happening. If they knew that they're not quite as empowered as we think they are, we think that there's this just wild loose of the leash, and that there are no checks and balances. It's not quite that bad. But what people are concerned about, obviously, is it can get that bad.
Yeah.
But the point is that you started off by saying you feel like you're blowing in the wind on this both ways, one day changing. I think everybody feels like that, but I don't consider that being equivocal. I consider it being evolving, and that is, at the end of this, where are we? At the end of this, what is that evolution? What's this new norm in America? Ring
of Fire Radio host, America's lawyer, Mike Papantonio. Mike, great to visit. Good to talk on this. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Ed.
All right, my man. This is Ed Schultz News and Commentary. More right after this. PillPack, Communication Workers of America, Alliance for American Manufacturing, BioGreen Clean, and the iSave team bring you this production. I recently discovered PillPack. It's a full-service pharmacy that takes care of everything for me. They pre-sort and deliver all my medications and vitamins in easy-to-tear packets, labeled with the date and time for each dose. Their pharmacists are available 24/7, and they manage all of my refills. They'll do the same for you. They even made sure my insurance was compatible before they transferred my medications over. It's unbelievable how much better my life has been since I switched to PillPack. Hey folks, you've heard me talk about BioGreen Clean. I'm going to show you right now on my airplane just how tough this is. I want you to keep in mind, chemical-free, 100% plant-derived, biodegradable. It is the safest cleaner that you can get, and it's the most effective. Go to our website, wegoted.com, or go to biogreenclean.com. www.biogreenclean and order today. It's time to continue our conversation about mechanical insulation. Mechanical insulation is for the piping systems in our nation's commercial and industrial facilities. Facility owners are burning up billions of dollars through the lack of mechanical insulation on these piping systems. Call the iSave team. Insulation saves America valuable energy, and this team of energy conservation specialists is shovel-ready to save you money. Visit iSaveTeam.org to have a specialist give your plant an energy audit.
We perpetuate a culture of crime all the way from Wall Street right down to the main street in our hometowns.
It's worse than it has been since FDR took control of the problem and said we can't count on industry taking care of the American labor.
They probably have already engaged into some type of criminal cover-up.
And the law prohibits the government from even doing anything about it.
Catch America's lawyer Mike Papantonio on YouTube at youtube.com/GoLeftTV.
I will be in Indianapolis, Indiana, working the protest line and talking to the workers who are being outsourced to Mexico. That story coming up on RT on Monday night at RT America and RT.com. WeGotEd.com, RawStory.com, RingOfFireRadio.com. This is Ed Schultz, News and Commentary. Have a great weekend.